There were tensions in the workplace that related to both race and gender. There were people who said, I'm not going to work with a black person, and there were men who said, I'm not going to work alongside a woman. So we talk about unity during World War II, but there were lots and lots of bridges that had to be built.
In the case of Kaiser, the labor unions, particularly the Boilermakers Union, began reluctantly to accept first women and then African Americans, men and women. The momentum to challenge Jim Crow that really launched the modern civil rights movement grew out of the Double V campaign, that African Americans pushed for victory over the enemies abroad, but also over Jim Crow at home. The Pittsburgh Courier really was behind launching this campaign for African Americans to challenge and defeat segregation, discrimination based on race, in housing, in the workplace, in schools.
I went to Richmond High and was taught welding, and I worked at Kaiser's. But I never worked side by side with on the same ship with a man welding.
I'll tell you what, the women were the best welders. If you give the woman the job she does and does that job, that's how it's done right.
It was like creating an embroidery in metal. I can point out that was a man's weld and that was a woman's weld because they look different. The men's isn't as uniform.
We worked for hours and we did twice the work the men did.
A new world shipbuilding record is set at one of Henry J. Kaiser's California shipyard. 24 days ago, just a keel plate.
Henry Kaiser was a genius.
He started one of the first health plans, and he started a place for people to live and things that people didn't have before.
He developed the child care centers to accommodate the children needing care while their parents were at work.
And here's the man who builds them in record time. Henry J. Kaiser with a model to show how it's done. Built to scale, the 14-foot model is made of 81 feet.
Everything was prefabbed under Kaiser, where they had the big sheets of steel and they'd weld those together and then move them by crane onto the ships.
We call them the Horley cranes. They were so enormous, and they would lift these massive pieces of metal and boxes, and they were just one of the biggest things I'd ever seen.
And that's how come ships could be built so fast. Parts would be welded together and ready to be put onto a ship in no time.
Our motto was 10 down the ways in 31 days.
Down the ways. They would slide that ship down into the San Francisco Bay.
Rain or shine, ships quietly slipped into San Francisco Bay, faster and faster. By the fall of 1943, more than one ship a day left Richmond, most colossal shipbuilding spectacle the world had ever witnessed.
They were always giving speeches and telling us how the other yards, how fast they were getting a ship built, so there was always competition.
And I remember when we worked on the Robert Peary, which was built, by the way, I think the record has it either 3.5 or 4.5 days from beginning to finish. And I think that's an amazing team.
Launching at Yard 1 and 2 were particularly festive occasions. They got famous people from all over the country. Ship would go sliding down the ways right after the champagne was cracked over the bow. Very ceremonial.
It was a patriotic time. You'd see the kids collecting newspapers, collecting tinfoil, collecting anything. Women, they gave up all their girdles, all their underwear that had elastic. It really was the most wonderful time of coming together of the American people that I have ever lived through.
It wasn't as if the shipyards closed and some balloon burst and Richmond was depopulated. It really continued to be a thriving community.
Today, I think you have waves of newcomers who have that kind of vibrancy that those newcomers during the wartime had. Richmond, it was called the city that won the Purple Heart because of the amount of change and crowding in the war effort and turning out those ships in record numbers. Something happened in the small town of Richmond that people should be very proud of.
I was very proud of myself that I worked in the shipyards. Proud of myself because I thought we were doing something for the war effort.
From that point on, I always thought, I can do anything I want to do. If I set my mind to it, I can do anything. And that's how I've lived the rest of my life.
This was the place to be. What sticks with me the most was how wonderful everybody was to each other. Very patriotic and pulling together, and it was just a good time.
That's what makes the story so interesting, that these were ordinary people who did extraordinary things.